Now, nobody judge me right now, but I don't know if you ever had Pete's cold brew coffee, but it is really good when you add Bailey's. Now, I'm probably sure you're thinking to yourself, Bricky, you're having cold brew coffee, a large cold brew coffee with Bailey's at 7:32 p.m. Yes, I have lost control of my life. I also dropped the thing on the floor. All right, I'm gonna need the journal for this one. I got a journal for this one. I got a notebook specifically for this video. So some of you may not know this, but I, Bricky, that's me, am a very large movie buff. In fact, I was even debating making a third channel specifically for movie reviews. Now, at the time I thought it would be kind of a fun idea, but then I realized a third channel, it's a bit much, but I am a huge movie fan. I love each and every kind of movie, everything from the most action-packed blockbuster like a Marvel movie to the more slower paced, more intricate films like, say, Drive is a good example, I think. Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson, also a movie that I personally enjoy. I'm just naming examples, but the point being is I like a lot of movies. And with the last couple of days, especially within PAX South, God, that's good. I've been watching a ton of movies because I've had some more free time and also a little bit of plane trips. So I've seen 5 separate movies in the past couple of days. Now, sometimes I would consider doing individual reviews just for the hell of it, but I thought, let's condense them down into one video and I can do 5 separate movie reviews for it because I kind of like stretching a little bit of movie review muscles. I think it's fun and I hope you will too. So the 5 movies I want to talk about today, 4 of them are from 2018. One of them is from 2003. The 2003 one, we will go ahead and start off first, and then we'll get to the next 4. And so I'll put timestamps in the description as well if you're curious to jump around a little bit, because these are all relatively new movies, some still in theaters, and I feel like if you are interested in these kinds of films, you should definitely give them a look-see or at least find out which ones I'm talking about. So, with that being said, God, that's so good, man. Let us begin with a 2003 film. Now, there is another movie reviewer who recently came out with a video about the new remake of the original Korean film Oldboy. The remake, however, was in 2013, and it was generally an anti-review. I did not like it very much, and it was basically a bunch of negative stuff about the movie. However, I had never seen Oldboy 2003, originally a Korean film by, I apologize for this, Park Chan-wook is the director, I believe. I probably am butchering that name, but in the case that I am not, that's the director. Now, I had no interest in seeing this 2003 movie, Oldboy, but as I was watching this anti-review of the new one, 10 minutes into the video, I was already so invested in the Korean adaptation, or actually, it's not even an adaptation, the Korean original of the film that I decided to close the video and watch the movie for myself. And therefore, the first movie on the list is Oldboy, the Korean film from 2003. Now, some of you are already very familiar with Oldboy, some of you are not. A good example that I can explain to those people who are not familiar with the movie is if you have ever seen the Daredevil TV show, there is a fantastic hallway of action scene that, at least I'm pretty damn sure, was inspired by a similar scene in Oldboy 2003. Now, a simple one-sentence line for the movie, if I'm explaining the plot, is a man is kidnapped and held, I guess, hostage for 15 years, and he is then released and he seeks revenge. And I cannot say a single other thing without spoiling the movie, because this movie has so many fantastic plot points, elements, twists, turns, acting, and everything in between. Now, I originally was a little bit skeptical going into a Korean-based film because I generally watch mainly American-based films, with the exception of one of my more favorite films being The Hunt with Mads Mikkelsen, which is a Danish film. But with a subtitle-only film, especially one from a different kind of culture, I didn't know how the films and the Korean film culture might clash with American style. So I was a little bit reserved, trying to hold judgment and the possibility that there might be differences, but it is a very accessible movie for an American viewer like myself. So if you are, say, an American-based watcher and you're curious about this movie, it is very accessible. Do not let the foreign subtitle-only nature of it fool you. This is an incredible, incredible film, with the caveat of being pretty messed up. It's not overly violent, I'd say. It's just some of the themes, and anyone who has seen Oldboy can agree with me on this one. Some of the themes are pretty messed up. Definitely some stuff that makes you squirm, and there is one specific torture scene that does make me squirm out of my skin pretty damn hard. But with that exception, the movie is pretty damn screwed up. However, it has a phenomenal plot, incredible acting. The main character and even the main villain at the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie show some of the best acting I have seen in my entire life. And it doesn't matter that I was reading the entire thing in subtitles. The raw emotion presented by these actors was incredible. It was a sight to behold. It was so well shot. It was so well directed, and the acting is it's so incredible. It really is such an incredible feat to have these actors portray their characters in all of their rage, anger, and anguish that they feel throughout the entire film. And it also brings into perspective the incredible job the villain does with making him almost sympathetic. Now, he does some pretty horrible things, but the fact that at the end of the movie, I can think and see all the terrible things this character did, and at the same time feel bad for them. That's really a feat. Some people probably call this movie a classic. I wouldn't know if it's considered a classic or not, but after watching it, I can understand why people would call it that, because this is a phenomenal film, and if you haven't seen it yet, please do. I don't really have a whole lot else to say about it, besides the fact that I'm very upset that I slept on it, and I'm definitely going to check out more of Park Chan-wook's material very soon. Next up, we have Annihilation. Play the sound clip. Directed by Alex Garland. Now, Alex Garland has a couple of films that I really love. He directed Ex Machina, as well as 28 Days Later, one of my more favorite films. 28 Days Later is actually my favorite zombie film. Well, zombie. Pretty much of all time. Zombieland for a comedy, sure, but 20 Days Later, I adore the filmmaking style of that movie, and I really, really like it. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Annihilation right now. Annihilation, if we're doing my one-word summary of the movie, is Natalie Portman is an ex-military biology professor, I believe, and has to go into this really weird, I'm not sure if I would call it terrestrial, or like perhaps a weird phenomenon or whatever you want to call it, thing called the Shimmer. It's like a field, and she has to go find out what the hell's going on. And that's basically all I'm going to say. I try to keep these very vague. Now, Annihilation is definitely interesting because it's a sci-fi film, and I do love sci-fi films, and it's also a slow burn. Now, I also do not have a problem with slow burn films. A couple of other films coming up are also slow burns, give or take. At least one of them is. And I, of course, myself am a fan of all kinds of cinema. Blade Runner 2049 is a slow burn sci-fi film, and it's probably my favorite movie of all time. Maybe top 3, give or take. Annihilation is a absolute treasure when it comes to cinematography, shot composition, the score, as well as, the score, let me say it again, the score is incredible. There's a reason almost every movie reviewer ever is putting this in their reviews. One, because the scene that plays in it is awesome, and two, because it's just such a good score for the film. But it really takes its time, this movie, and creates quite the environment with not only its creature design, but its set design, and all the different inner workings of this place, the Shimmer, and how it acts is incredibly interesting and creates some just jaw-dropping cinema. If I could tell you to watch this at a really high-def TV, some like QLED or OLED TV, or some nice-looking TV, please do, because it is phenomenal looking, and it really does bring in a whole new level of just visual appeal from it. And I mentioned the character design already. Those of you who have seen Annihilation have already had your dreams haunted by a certain bear creature. I myself have as well. Now, there is a bear creature in the movie that is so just unnerving, and it is one of my favorite scenes of any film I've seen in this entire last year. This being 2019 for myself, of course, but in 2018, I really, really did enjoy it. However, it's not all great bells and whistles in this movie. I feel like the first 30 to 45 minutes dragged a bit more. I'm always one for slow burns, but I feel like the burn was a little bit slower than slow, and it could have been picked up a little bit. Also, no one in the movie does a bad job acting, but no one's going to be winning any Oscars for this movie. There aren't any crazy standout performances. They're all decent, serviceable, and I even call them good, but none of them are incredible. That being said, everything else in the movie is very, very enjoyable. And it definitely can provide a interesting type of film depending on what you personally like. Because this is not going to be everybody's movie. I can already tell that, where if you're someone who doesn't like a slow burn, perhaps you're also someone who read the book, because I've been told that it's a little bit different than the book itself. And not only that, but if you're expecting something else, perhaps expecting an action movie in this sci-fi film, you're probably not going to get that. It's a much slower, more meticulous movie, but it does take its time. And with the exception of the opening 45 minutes to 30 minutes, give or take, that time is spent very well. The next movie on my list was You Were Never Really Here by Lynn Ramsey, or Ramsey. I'm not quite sure how to say that. But this is a movie that I would best describe as a slightly artsier version of Ryan Gosling's Drive, starring Joaquin Phoenix instead. Now, if you're a fan of Drive, there's a possibility you will be a fan of this movie as well. Granted, this movie is slower and has a little bit of a different way it handles itself than Drive, but at the same time, it follows a lot of the same beats in its presentation. Now, You Were Never Really Here is a bit of a conflicting film for me. You can't say a movie has objectively good anything, because any kind of movie is dependent on the person. But if I had to use the word objectively, it does have objectively great cinematography, a wonderful score, good pacing, the fantastic acting. Joaquin Phoenix absolutely kills it. I forget who the main actor was in Manchester by the Sea, but their performance, Casey Affleck? I think it was Casey Affleck. Their performance was very shown not by screaming and yelling and bombastic types of performances, but rather a much more quiet and reserved and pained character. Joaquin Phoenix is the same. It's a hitman. Oh yeah, that's right. I have to do my one sentence summary. Joaquin Phoenix is a hitman, and he's been tasked with saving a political person's daughter from a sex trafficking thing. That's all I really got. Granted, that's really not what the movie is about, though. It's a lot about Joaquin Phoenix's character, a guy named Joe, and what he has dealt with throughout his life. This movie is very heavy on the idea of mental illness, mainly depression, PTSD, and abuse. And it works well because child trafficking, abuse, you get the whole deal there. But this is much more of a slower movie and definitely an artsier movie. Mostly to its advantage, sometimes to its detriment. There are many scenes in the movie that contain very critical information about our character and what he has gone through that are either missing or glossed over like this. Now, in the book that it was based off of, also, I believe that, I'm not sure if it was named the same, but in the book that it was based off of, there are a lot of very important plot details to the background of the main character that I think are shown in maybe half-second flashback clips. Very, very fast, where if you blink, you might miss it. And it provides some backstory, but there's a lot more needed backstory that I think could have served the movie a lot better if they went about that route. Fortunately, they didn't entirely do that in a lot of the scenes, and I do feel like that held back the film a little bit when there could have been so many more important things that could have been shown, and not only that, but provided more context to what our character was doing. That being said, Joaquin Phoenix, I feel like, should be nominated for an Oscar for his performance in this movie. He was incredible. He did a fantastic job. He knew what he was doing. The way he spoke and how he acted, his mannerisms were very interesting and surprising. But at the same time, the movie, even with my issues with it, is still what I would call a very good movie because every technical aspect of it is well done. And also, I believe this is a very common thing that the director likes to do, this very slow-paced, more artsy style film. And I do think it serves it well at times, but I do think it detracts from it slightly. This is definitely where a personal opinion of my own and what I enjoy in movies and what I feel like the movie could have done better might conflict with yours. A great example of this, if I'm using video game terms, is like Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Now, that's one of my favorite games. It's hilarious, it's awesome, and I would recommend you all play it. But I would only give it like a 7 out of 10 because there are some glaring flaws. Whereas if I were to pull out a game, let's say like Papers, Please, I would give that like a 9 or a 10, but I wouldn't entirely recommend that you play it because that's a very specific game for some very specific people. I think it's great, but that might not be your cup of tea. Same thing with a game like, say, Nier Automata, a tomato. This is that kind of movie. Definitely look into it and see if this is the kind of movie you would like, but have a couple reservations just because you never know. You might love this film, and it's definitely a solid film in my opinion, but I want to try to give you the best way to give you an informed choice. Next up, we have The Sisters Brothers by... Okay, French fans, you got this. I'm tossing this one over to you. Now, The Sisters Brothers is not an incest thing, all right? Their last name is Sisters. So they're Charlie and Eli Sisters. That's their name. And they're brothers. All right? We're good? Okay? We got that out of the way? Good. The Sisters Brothers has quite the star-studded cast. It has John C. Reilly, Joaquin Phoenix, again, Jake Gyllenhaal, and I can't remember this guy's name, but he was the villain in Venom. Riz Ahmed. Ahmed? Is it Ahmed or Ahmed? I don't know if you're supposed to use like that, in it. Doesn't matter. Point being, this is what I would call a kind of action-adventure drama western movie. Let me give you my little one-sentence summary. The Sisters Brothers are a hired assassin slash hitman going out to find a specific person for their employer, and that's about it. They're going to go find them. Jake Gyllenhaal is also trying to find the person, and the person they're trying to find is Riz Ahmed. This is the 1850s, give or take, gold rush era, I believe in California, maybe Oregon. I think it's around that area, the border. And this movie is pretty fun. I will admit, it's a pretty good movie. It's got pretty great acting across the board. I'm so happy to see John C. Reilly in a non-Will Ferrell comedy movie because he really does have some serious acting chops, and I wish he would show it off more often. And I mean, if he wants to do comedies, fine, but he really can do a damn good job. Joaquin Phoenix, again, is phenomenal. I really think that we should be looking at Joaquin Phoenix a lot more considering his acting talent, because him as the Joker coming up, I'm extremely excited for it, seeing what he's been able to pull off for these last couple of movies. Jake Gyllenhaal has a very interesting accent that I never expected before, and Riz Ahmed is really damn good too. The movie also has a nice little bit of charm and wit to it. Lots of good comedy that can be provided from it, some good action scenes, and a lot of good wit between characters and the dialogue. The writing of the movie is very well done. All the different kinds of writing are great. They're interesting. It's a lot of fun listening to these characters talk back and forth. Anytime where I got the two Sisters Brothers getting a chance to one-off each other was super fun. You know, pop off little different quotes from each other. Bounce off dialogue. That's the word I'm looking for. However, I will admit, after finishing this movie, it didn't sit as well with me as the other couple ones did. And I was really struggling to find out why. Because I was looking at issues with the movie. I was thinking, why did this movie just not sit with me like I wanted it to? And I was looking at acting. No, everyone did great. Cinematography, no. Great. Dialogue, no. Great. Direction, no. Great. What was the problem? And I think I finally nailed it down. I think that was a difference in priorities of what this film wants to be. At times, there's an action scene. Cool. Then there's some comedy. Okay. Then there's some action-adventure drama again. Okay. Then we're back to comedy. All right. Action scene, sure. Doesn't last long, though. It seems like it has conflicting priorities of what it wants to be. it acts as an action movie and it's a good action movie, then it goes away. Acts as a drama and it's a good drama, then it goes away. It acts as a comedy and it's a good comedy, and then it goes away. And it feels like it spikes in different genres as the movie goes on. And it never has any specific kind of fundamental stick to these roots, do this kind of thing in the movie style. And this is the issue I kind of had with Into the Spider-Verse one time, which is when they had Peter Porker. Is that how you say his name? The movie itself, Into the Spider-Verse that is, was very much a comedy, but it still had a lot of heart in its action movie and some stakes. And I felt like that one character, as funny as they were, kind of deteriorated from the stakes a little bit and trying to turn it into only a comedy. This movie, The Sisters Brothers, seemed like it did everything well, but it tried to do everything. And I feel like that conflicting lack of priorities ended up causing it a problem. Now, it could be seen a different way. It could be seen as the journey of these two characters and how they interact with everyone, and that is simply the journey of these characters. And while that is definitely a way to put it, it didn't sit as well with me. This is far from a movie that I would consider bad or mediocre, but it is definitely something that I had difficulty enjoying as much due to a bit of conflicting priorities in the film. Everything about the film is pretty good, but that is the one thing I did want to mention, that I came out of the movie kind of thinking, maybe this wasn't entirely for me. And that probably is the thing. It wasn't entirely for me. But objectively, I don't really know any better way to say it, it was a pretty solid film, and I have to give it props where props are due. And finally, oh, perfect timing. We've got Bad Times at the El Royale with Drew Goddard, I think is how it's said, as the director. I'm just going to go out there and say it. I dug this movie. I loved this movie so much. Now, the simple synopsis of the movie is that you have a hotel called the El Royale. And this takes place, I think, late 60s. I'm assuming, give or take that time period, maybe the 50s. I'm not entirely sure exactly when it's supposed to take place, but you have a hotel that is split on the border between California and Nevada, and you have multiple interesting figures coming to stay the night at that hotel, all with a little bit of a past in the background. And that's your movie. Now, this is a movie that Tarantino fans will love. If you like Tarantino, you're going to like this. When I go into a Tarantino film, I expect a couple things. Witty dialogue, excellent tension-building scenes, and the expectation that any of the main characters can die like that. And I got all three. The way this film presented itself, it had a lot of nice quips and humor and enjoyable back and forth between characters and a lot of good tension building that really sold the scenes very well. And also a lot of just thoroughly enjoyable scenes that this movie had. I can name about 4 to 5 off the top of my head of my favorite scenes in the movie, and they keep on going down that list because there were just so many good scenes in this film. And it was such a blast to watch as well. I was so invested. Really early on, I was already extremely invested in what was going on. Within the first 10 to 20 minutes, they've already sold you that these people may not be what they seem to be. What they say they are. Yeah, that works. It's almost like everybody has a dirty little secret and they're all finding a way to get around it, and they're all here at this hotel. Why? That's for you to find out. And I dug this movie. I really did. I can't really think of a better way to describe it. I love this thing. It was such a blast. It was fun. It was exciting. It was tense. It was just a really good time. And sometimes I can't think of any better way to describe a film than calling it a really good time. And funny enough, this movie does seem to be slightly polarizing on who people or what people really enjoy it or not. Some people seem to really like it, some people don't seem to really like it at all. And it seems like it's kind of back and forth depending on what exactly people's thoughts are on this film. And for me, I loved it. I thought it was so fun. I walked out of that film, well, I more like sat up after that film, thought to myself, damn, that was really cool. And it's got a wonderful cast as well. John Hamm, Jeff Bridges, Chris Hemsworth with Chris Hemsworth. Buddy, listen, man. Listen, dude. I'm not appreciating the body, all right? All right? I want to be able to walk on the streets and have people not expect me to have 8-pack abs and toned, glistening muscles, okay? I like to eat cake, all right? I like pie. I can't do chicken and brown rice and broccoli every day, all right? Stop making it so hard for us. Okay, got that out of the way. All right, we're good now. Dickhead. But the best way I can describe this film is it's like a Tarantino film, like an Inglourious Bastards, like a Django Unchained, like a Hateful Eight. A lot of people like to akin it to the Hateful Eight. I'm half on that. It's less of a whodunit like the Hateful Eight is and more of just a mystery story. But either way, it does have a lot of Tarantino aspects of it. And it's not saying that the director ripped off Tarantino or anything. No, it's more of just a filmmaking style, but he did a fantastic job with it. And I really do think it should be commemorated because it's the time at the movies that I like to be a part of as much as I can, watching a movie like this. It's definitely not a movie I would watch maybe more than 2 or 3 times, only because I now know what happens. But it was quite a blast. I highly recommend it. And if you're a fan of those kinds of films, definitely check it out. And with that, that is the end of my 5-part movie review. 5 parts in 1 video, that is. God damn it. I have a group chat with all my friends from high school, and they started a poll. Who should be the next DLC character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? And of course, the #1 pick is Sans Undertale. Anyway, this has been my movie review. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed and possibly picked up any of these movies for yourself. Right now, I have a couple movies already queued that I want to get into for the next couple of days. The first one being Upgrade. Apparently it's some kind of action movie that has like a AI enhancements in the body or something. I don't know. It seemed kind of interesting and kind of funny at the same time. So I already have that one queued up, ready to go. And from here on out, I'm probably going to watch a couple more films, see which ones are getting nominated for Best Picture, and see if there's anything that's worth seeing. Probably going to watch If Beale Street Could Talk next as well. That looks like a pretty damn good film. And from there, I'm just going to move on over and mosey on down. There's going to be some new merchandise coming out on the merch store very soon at brickymerch.com. Please go ahead and give it a look-see. If there's anything that if there's anything that's currently in stock that you're interested in, go ahead and give it a look. But if not, we do have some new stuff coming out soon, and I think you're going to like it quite a bit. So stay tuned for the next couple of videos, because I will be discussing that very soon. And also check out the second channel, as I will also probably be discussing it there, and we do have some playthroughs going on as well. All right, my name has been Bricky. Thank you for watching, and I will see you some other day. Bye-bye.